You know, there's tons of people in the world that claim to be psychic and mediums and advisors, but there's people who've paid the dues to get there and naturally have the gift. And I know this woman. I know her father. This is Jerry Wills' daughter. This is Christy Wills. She's got a beautiful flyer. If any of you haven't gotten it, she's doing private readings, I understand. And do you want to sit or stand while you work? Okay. And she really is a very gifted lady. You're very lucky to be here. So enjoy her presence, and I will turn this over to this lovely, lovely woman. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. As she was saying, my name's Christy. This is going to be my very first lecture, so if I seem a little nervous, that's why. So tonight we're going to talk about scrying and divination techniques. Okay. Can you hear me a little bit better now? All right. Sorry. Is the video going to go up on? Is the video? No? Okay. Not sure. Thank you. Not sure about what happened, but I had a PowerPoint presentation I wanted to share with all of you about scrying and divination techniques. Yeah, man plans and God laughs is exactly right. Let's see. Are we? Okay. I'll go ahead and start talking about it a little bit. There's a really pretty picture. I wish I could show it to all of you, but right now I can't. But in case you were wondering what scrying is, it is a divination technique. I don't know if we have any fans of Game of Thrones. There's the lady who looks into the fire, and that's a form of divination technique where she looks and she sees visions that come through. And you have to be very relaxed and grounded whenever you do this. You never know really for sure what you're going to see. Some of it may not even make sense, and you may not even see anything the first few times that you attempt to do it. Some of the other ways that you can do scrying are very simple. I actually made this yesterday before I came. It's got a little smudged, but this is simply a photo frame, and I painted it black with the glossy paint. And whenever you get ready to use this, you dim the lights in the room, if not turn them all off, and you light 5 candles. And the reflection of the candles will kind of make little, it'll make little shadows and different shapes when the lights flicker upon it. And like I said, when you first begin to do this, you just need to relax and not try to see anything. You want to turn that part of your brain off and allow your psychic powers to come in and into your own. But when you see those little flickers, you might see things like you would in the clouds. You might see the shape of a whale or a dog or a rabbit. And when you see those things, it's not so important as what those images are, it's how those images make you feel. So it's really important. We have video now, but it's really important to be more aware of how the images make you feel. For instance, I had a friend. She saw roses one time. And I said, oh, well, that's really sweet. Maybe that means that love's coming into your life or that you're happy and in love. And she said, no, that's not how I felt, because whenever I see roses, I think more of death or illness. And, people bring roses, to someone who's ill. So keep that in mind. Just because we see something, the way it makes another person feels, you can't put a label on everything. You have to pay attention to how it makes you feel. So here's our definition. It's a form of divination, which means foretelling the future, but it's also a great tool to use for personal growth, guidance, and not just for the future, but for the present time, because it can also give you some inclinations about who you were in a past life, where you are on this personal journey that you're at right now, and where you stand in relation to other people. All those, I mean, it's a very broad meanings that you can grasp from doing scrying, and it's not, a lot of people are like, well, are you a witch, Christy? No, I'm not a witch, not at all. And I'm just me. And sometimes I use scrying just to get a better idea and feeling of what's going on, because it helps to turn off that thinking part of your brain, where our ego lies. It helps us turn that off and just turn on the spiritual part so we can relax. The next slide is just a beautiful picture I thought was, and this goes on to talk about protection. Now, before you do any type of what some would call magical work or divination, even if it's tarot reading or trying to help someone see into their situation, which we all have an ability to use and tap into our psychic beings. So anytime you do anything like that, you need to surround yourself in white light. You need to surround yourself with a protection, because we don't know what forces could be just hanging out waiting to come and corrupt maybe a message that we want to give to someone or for ourselves. So protection is paramount. That's the very first thing you need to do anytime you're going to do any type of scrying, so that you can talk and make sure that your spirit guides are there with you, your archangels. We all have different names, but our spiritual protectors can watch over us and keep us safe and grounded while we do these things, because you don't want to get lost in the ether. The next is the different types. As I was saying, there are different types of scrying. Some people use obsidian, a black shiny stone. Some people do as I did and maybe take paint and paint a mirror or a picture frame, something that is black and has the reflective surface. Some people actually use bowls, dark bowls with water, and you put the water in it, and some people will even take like ink or food coloring to darken the water. And there are even, the oldest one, the most well-known, is the crystal ball. You've seen the pictures where people are telling the future in the crystal ball. That's the most common scrying or divination tool that people are familiar with. With the water, you don't necessarily pay attention to what's in the water as much as you pay attention to what seems to appear on the surface of the water. But everyone's different. So it's good to try all these different techniques instead of just relying and saying this is the best way, because there is no best way. We're all different, so we have to kind of figure out which one works best for us. Again, water scrying, like I said, is done by doing the dark water. You can darken it with food coloring, ink, and you can gaze at the surface. And then the crystal or the mirror scrying is used when you do a crystal ball or with a mirror or with the picture frame, as I showed you. And a lot of people like to use dark colored quartz stones. I mean, again, it's all what you feel more comfortable with and because I really do recommend that everybody try different ways, different techniques if they are interested in scrying, because one way may feel more comfortable for you than another. It's easy to do. It just takes a little practice. The objective is to see things in the mirror, crystal ball, or water. And again, the first thing that is really important, you need to dim the lights. After you've done your protection, you need to dim the lights. And if you have bright lights, it's just a distraction, and it's going to distort the reflection on the surfaces of what you're looking at. it's very important that you just relax. Again, if you are trying to see something, you're not allowing yourself to relax and just let your mind gaze. It's like I said, it's like looking in the clouds, trying to pick out shapes and things that maybe have some sort of personal meaning to you. So take a few minutes to get, into a relaxed meditative state. Take some slow, deep breaths and release all that tension from your body. And then when you feel calm and centered, focus on the mirror, and then don't try to rush it. I've had people, whenever I've told them how to do this, well, Christy, I'm not seeing anything. This isn't working. This is silly. I feel silly. My husband walked in on me and was wondering, what in the world am I doing? And I'm like, well, if you don't see anything, it's okay. It's just like with anything, meditation. I'm sure most of you have meditated, or you remember how it was in the beginning. It was really hard to get into that calm state. So don't worry if you can't see anything. The more you do it and the more you practice it, the better you become and the more that you will see. And make sure you even give note to those subtle impressions that you see. Everything has a meaning. If we're open to the signs that are there, we can relate them to our life in a way. Now, people tell me, well, okay, so Christy, I've done this, I've relaxed, and I saw a dog. I don't have a dog. I don't know what that means. And you told me to write this down. I wrote it down. And I always tell them, go to Google. It's one of the best places to find, it's true. If I can't, and again, you need to pay attention to how the symbol or the thing that you think you see or, whatever it is, how it makes you feel. So I did pull some references off of different symbolism and things like that off of Google. But I always tell people to use this very loosely, because just because I see, if you see a dog or you see a dog, it could be totally different meanings for you. But like a dog is supposed to mean, if you're supposed to look at it, is it nice or a mean dog? Is it, aggressive? And then you look at yourself and you say, am I nurturing my friendship, or am I biting other people's heads off? Maybe I need to, do some self-reflection or look at the relationships that I have with my friends. A car or any type of mode of transportation that you see whenever you're scrying, that is symbolic of, is it going forward, backward, stuck? Are you flying? Are you crashing? And we can all come to, a general idea of where that goes. Rainbows, that's usually, a sign that there's some hope, new life, happy endings, things that you would normally consider rainbows and glitter and unicorns. It's a lighter feel. But just, if you don't know for sure what it means and you're really stumped and you just can't put your finger on it, like I said, write it in a journal, visit it every now and then. It could come to you. And if it doesn't, it's okay to look and see what different, totems mean, or spirit guides, because nobody is going to have the same reaction to a vision that they see when they're scrying. Like I was saying, revisit it, journal and don't take the symbols literally. If you do go on Google, proceed with caution, because if it says that you saw a black rose, and so maybe Google says, oh, that means death or something. Don't take it so literally that you freak yourself out and you're losing sleep, and because you can't take those things literally. You have to remember, how does it make you feel on the inside? It's your own personal intuition and your self-collectiveness. So I left some time for questions, and I'm hoping that you guys have lots of questions for me, and I will answer them as best I can. Just raise your hand, and I'll point at you if you do have a question. Oh, yes.
How did you find out about scrying? Because that's usually taught in parapsychology.
Yes. I found out about scrying through my dad and my mom. I remember being young, and Dad actually has a beautiful crystal ball. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it's absolutely amazing, and it has a star map on the inside of the ball, the little bubbles that form. I'm sure they have a scientific name, but they look like little bubbles. And there's actually a arrow on the inside of the crystal that points to the stars. And I wish he were here. I would allow him to tell this story because it's pretty amazing. But I practiced using his crystal ball as a kid, and also when I was living with my mother, I would, I saw my mother doing it with mirrors, and I was really intrigued. I was a little kid, but I was very intrigued, and I asked questions and just eventually started experimenting with it myself and read up on it. I did as much research as I could to learn, and I found it to be a really good technique to get yourself in a relaxed meditative state whenever you're having trouble coming to a conclusion or a decision. And it's really interesting to me that oftentimes in those situations, whenever I would use scrying, it gave me information not on my current life, but on my past lives and where I am and where I need to continue go in order to ascend. So that's when I use it. Some people use it, because they are wanting a question about a promotion or a romantic partnership. I use it to look at my past lives. It's very informative to me in that way. So you'll find your own, niche that you kind of turn to whenever you are looking at, because there's so many tools out there, and you have to find the one that you're comfortable with. Any other questions? Yes, sir. So you're asking if you close your eyes and you allow your third eye, is it the same as doing that? It's a little different. The idea is the same because, whenever you open your third eye, your other eyes can be closed, and it's a little different in that respect. In scrying, your eyes are open, but they're relaxed. You kind of let them you don't make them focus real well, and you just relax your eyes. When you use your third eye, you're looking more within and with your spirit guides and your spirit self. So that's where it's different. In scrying, it's just a really good beginner's tool. So I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry, sir? If you can find some, it's becoming harder and harder nowadays to find a nice night sky without headlights or, airplanes, satellites. If you can find that, and if that works for you, that is very much the same as scrying. I mean, because you are looking, you're relaxing, and you're allowing your mind to just float and go to where it needs to. But again, always protect yourself before doing this. I remember seeing some really scary things whenever I first started doing this because I was ignorant. I'll just be blunt. I was ignorant and I was naive. And I was playing with things I didn't understand. And you don't want that to happen to you. So I'm here to tell you, before you do anything, the very first thing you need to do is make sure you bless your area and you surround yourself with that light so that nothing malevolent, can come in and interfere. Anyone else have a question? Yes, ma'am. Okay. She was asking about past lives. How would you figure out if you're seeing something from a past life? In scrying, it's about the feeling, okay? It's about what you see, but how does what you see make you feel? And for me, whenever I started seeing images of, I saw like a house, and I saw a stream, and I saw birds, and while those are normal, ordinary things, I knew that I had not seen them in this life as I saw them in the scrying mirror. So I kept on with it, and over time, messages were coming through to me through the scrying tool, and this is when I was much younger. Messages that were telling me that, hey, you've been here before, I even saw a face, my own face, not that you see today, but like the image of myself as a child in another lifetime. So it's about interpretation and intuition and how the images make you feel as you see them. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am. She was asking, the more you practice, do you find it easier? Absolutely. Again, you may start out and you may feel silly. Just like with anything, you're going to fall off the bike a few times in order to learn how to ride. And when you first start, it is frustrating because it's really, really hard to turn off that logical mind and to allow the spirit and the psychic mind to take over, because we're all trying to make sense of this world that we live in. So it's very hard in the beginning. And the more, though, that you stick to it and the more relaxed, which is a huge thing, if you can become very relaxed, you'll have messages. You'll see things in the scrying mirror or the scrying pool that give you messages and meanings that you're looking for. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am? Yes, I have used things. I have divining rods that I use, and divining rods are kind of tricky in the fact that I'm a psychic medium, and when I use divining rods, the spirits around me like to play with them. So, for instance, I've tried to find things that I've lost, and the rods will point somewhere totally opposite, or just, not do what, they're just messing with me. I don't know how else to put it. But yes, pendulums, that's another tool that can be used. But in this lecture, I wanted to use a visual tool, and that's why I was saying, the scrying with the mirror, the water, and the other methods that I mentioned, the crystal ball and the stones, those are really good visual ways. And for those of us who are skeptics or very logical, to me, this is the best way to start, because it teaches you to turn that logic mind off, and it teaches you to relax and to allow things to happen naturally. Whereas if you don't, if you try the divining rods, I've had friends, say, hey, can I try that? And they're just standing there, the rods are just doing nothing, or the pendulum, so with that, you train yourself, and you become, as I was saying, you become better at it as you go. Would anyone else like to ask a question? If I had a larger mirror, and if we could turn lights off, and if I could get some candles lit, I would love to show, but because I wouldn't mind. Yeah. My dad has candles. Yes, sir. Yes, yes. hmm He's asking about the tea leaves, coffee grounds. Um, those are all divination tools. And again, it's the reason I picked the one that I'm showing you today is because to me it's the easiest one to get a handle on and to learn. It's very, it's a little trickier whenever you do tea leaves or coffee grounds. And that's personally, that's not my my uh, yeah, it's not my way of doing it. I was sitting here thinking it, but the scrying mirror, I have a large mirror that's about this tall and about this wide that I have painted black that I use whenever I'm scrying. And you would be, the larger the mirror, you know, I'm not saying you have to go out and buy a huge mirror and paint it black, but the larger the mirror, I've just noticed that you get more light to reflect and bounce off of it, and it gives you more opportunity to see some of the things and messages that are coming through. But you don't have to have a huge one. That's just my personal, that's what I like, is the larger one. Yes, Kathy? Yes, that's what I actually did for tonight. I did something, you know, it's very inexpensive. I bought a $2 picture frame, and oh, oh, okay. Um, but I just bought a $2 picture frame from Walmart, bought some glossy paint, you know, that would stick to glass, took it out of the frame and painted it and let it dry and put another coat on it just to make sure it was, you know, thoroughly painted. And it makes up, this is perfect. And this is a really good size if you want to like set it on your dresser or on your altar, if you have an altar space, and put, you know, smaller candles around. This works really well. I like the larger one though, that's just me, you know, because of course, it's just whatever you feel comfortable with doing. I've seen them as small as the little mirrors that you have the suction cups on the back of them that you put on your, you know, with just the little tiny ones about, you know, yay big. I've seen people use those, but they're just too small for me. Maybe it's my eyesight. It's not the greatest. So. Oh, she was asking how far away should you sit whenever you're scrying. Uh-oh. I like to sit with the scrying mirror within my peripheral, at least about 5 feet away. Of course, keep in mind I have a larger one. If you have a smaller one, you want to sit a little closer. But with it about 5 to 6 feet away, with the candles in 5 different points of the room, because I use the big white candles, and I light those. And then like I said, I sit somewhere comfortably, and I just kind of have it out the corner of my eye. And I don't necessarily look at the scrying mirror. I allow it to just flicker, and I allow my mind to relax, and then I start to pick up little pictures. You know, I don't know how else to describe it. You just start seeing little images and things, and you try. Sometimes you fall asleep. I've actually, I get so relaxed, but you know, you try to remember what you see, and if it doesn't come to you right away and you don't make sense of it, then just jot it down in a journal, like I was saying earlier, and then revisit it to see if it's beginning to make, you know, sense or a meaning's coming to you. She was asking where should you set the candles in relation to you in the mirror. You want to make sure that the candles are in front of the mirror, of course, but not like right directly in front. I kind of picture a star, and I try to put them in the places that I would see the points of the star, as long as it's towards the front. Now, I have seen some people who will take, because if it's a smaller mirror, you need, you know, like the little tea lights, you can put them a little bit closer in towards the front of the mirror. The main thing is to get candles that the cheap ones work the best. You want candles that burn and they kind of like flicker. You know, the wick, it may go really high and then go low. Those are the kind of candles you want actually for this, because it changes the shapes in the mirror. You know, the reflections that you see, it changes them. So don't go out and buy the, you know, very expensive candles that, you know, are constant burning, or they're nice, but those aren't necessary for this. So does anyone else have any questions? Yes? This is, whenever I've done this with other people, this is what I always tell them. I'm going to sit with you, and, you know, I want you to relax and do this, but I'm not going to tell you what I'm seeing right away. I want you to relax enough, and if you see something, you know, feel free. I want you to share it with me. I don't generally use this tool to help another person see or gain more guidance on a situation. I don't use that tool for, you know, I use my other tools, abilities. So be very careful if, you know, if you run into someone that says, hey, we're going to scry and I'm going to tell you the answers that you're looking for or whatever, because like I was saying earlier, if roses mean one thing to me and roses mean something else to you, that's not going to be very helpful to you. And I'm doing you a disservice. So it's really a personal intuition type thing, because the meanings can be different for everyone. Anyone else have a question? Yes. No, please. That's a good question. She was asking, how long should you wait before you kind of, you know, throw the towel in and say, it's not working for me tonight? I say anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, because if it takes you longer than an hour to get to that relaxed state, then it's just not going to happen for you that night. And I'm not saying it's not going to happen at all. It just may not be that night. You may have to do this several times, but you should set aside about 30 minutes to an hour. In the very, very beginning, you don't even have to do it that long. If it's your first time, you can do it for a good 15, 20 minutes. And, you know, as long as you can get into, because you're actually training yourself to get into that very comfortable, relaxed state. So, you'll hear me say that a lot with this. You have to be very relaxed. You can't be focused in and trying to make sense right off. You have to allow those things, those messages to come to you. Does anyone else have a question or a comment? Yes, ma'am. It does not have to be night. You just need a dark room. Yeah, the thing, I've had people who have told me that they prefer to do it in the morning. And that's the beauty of it, because we all have our own guides, our own spirit. So when, you know, my spirits like to talk to me in the evening most of the time, and I have to set up a time, you know, because otherwise I'm bombarded all day with different, you know, energies. But if you're more of a morning person, you know, or whatever time that you feel, as long as it's a dark room with candles, you know, that's the main, that's what's important. So whenever it's perfect, you know, whenever it's good for you. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am. Well, there are a lot of theories. I mean, and you know, there was a man named Uri Geller, I think was his name. And he was really well known for helping oil industries, you know, find oil. And they did this scientific study where they put different items, I think water, wood, and I'll just make up something, rice, in these 3 metal barrels. It was a scientific study, and they asked him to go to, using the divining rods, which one had what in it. And they proved scientifically and statistically, and don't ask me for the numbers because you can Google it. I just don't have, the numbers. I wish I wrote it down, but it was like one in a crazy number that, he was just getting lucky. I mean, it was showing that he was right on each time. So a lot of people think it's your own energy, and a lot of people think that it's something else. It's the magnetism. There are so many theories. So I know I'm not really answering your question directly, but the jury's still out on that. So I would be doing you a disservice to tell you, yeah, absolutely, it's this or that. Anyone else have a question? Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Yes, I am a psychic medium. Okay, tonight I'm going to have a public psychic reading event, and I hope all of you that are here can be there for it. I started out as a kid seeing what I told my mom is like fairies or something, a little burst of light. And Mom took me to have my eyes checked. I got glasses. Because my mom and my dad are kind of opposite in a lot of ways, when I was younger. And then as I grew older, I started seeing things that were scaring my friends that I went to school with. I wasn't invited to sleepovers anymore because I was the weird kid. So I kind of resorted to nature, and you would probably find me most of the time in these big pine trees at the top reading books. That was me. I didn't have a whole lot of friends because I was so different. I could sense that I was different because I was seeing things and I was able to tell people about things that I would normally, other people wouldn't know. Well, that's all fine and dandy, and then I became an adult, and it got even more complicated. I have always had a heart to help others. I want to save the world. When I was younger, I thought maybe that was a possibility, but I went to school to become a social worker. I went to Western Kentucky University, and I graduated at the top of my class because it's really easy to take tests whenever you can get answers. Long story short, I was called crazy. I've had several failed marriages because you share this and you try to get them to understand, and it's really hard because if you're not with someone who is at least empathic, or sensitive to this, or at least open-minded, you get put into a psychiatric ward. Which happened to me, and I mean, I'm okay. I'm a little, maybe a little bitter still, but no. But, in Western culture, I mean, they want to medicate you. They want to give you all kinds of drugs, some really bad drugs. There was a point when they had me on so many medications, it was, I guess, if I didn't want this ability, it definitely numbed me, but it numbed me to everything, and life was not satisfying. Life was very lonely and sad. Lithium, Depakote, I mean, they had some really strong drugs they wanted to put me on, Risperdal, and that was a very hard time in my life because I was on those medications for a good while, and then finally decided that enough was enough, because even though they were trying to make me like everyone else, I still wasn't like everyone else, and I was unhappy because it's kind of like you open that Pandora's box and you know things. You can't just unknow things unless you knock someone on the head and they have a concussion, but you just can't unsee or unknow. So I was unhappy, but I tried to fill that void and that emptiness and that scared little girl with relationships, which often failed. And like I said, it was just a very turbulent time in my life. And once I got off the medications, I didn't just jump right in this and say, okay, world, I've got something for you. No, I didn't. I became a social worker, and I worked in foster care for several years in different states, because at the time I was married to a man who was in the military, so we were constantly, moving. But I worked for CPS, foster care. I also worked with adults who had mental illnesses, and I noticed something, that after I got all those medications out of my system, I was able to connect with these people on a whole different level. I could feel what they were feeling. I could see into their lives. I could see things that had happened to them in their past that had brought them to the point that they were at now. And I'm not making excuses for no one. No one should hurt another person, period. What I am saying, though, is that we need to have compassion, which is very lacking in the Department of Social Services. And I'm just telling you that from my own personal experience. You may work somewhere where it's awesome, and hats off to you, because we need more awesome social workers out there. But the compassion was really lacking in the instances and in the places that I worked. And I brought that with me. But here's what gets me, is I was doing a great job, great case management skills, and I was still an outsider because I didn't have the mentality of taking kids. I tried to fix the family unit because that was really important to me. Because when you, and I know I'm getting off on a tangent, and this isn't even what we were talking about scrying, so forgive me. But when you take a child away from a home too quickly without giving the parents a chance to get themselves together, because we all trip and fall, we all make mistakes. And I'm talking like I've seen some things where parents smoked weed and their baby was taken away from them because they tested positive for marijuana. So I've seen both extremes. But when you do that, you're collecting some really bad karma for yourself, number one. But that ripple effect doesn't just stop there. It touches so many lives from then on, and it creates a very negative force. And I was trying to fight. I was trying to swim upstream. I was fighting against that force. And I didn't win. I'm still fighting, though. But I didn't win those battles. I ended up, I was told after about a year or 2 years, you're just not a good fit because you won't just go out and do this. I wasn't a blind follower of orders. So that happened sometimes to me. And it hurt because I was doing such a great job, but I just wasn't that fit for them. So my psychic abilities, some people could say they're a gift. Some people might say they're a curse because they've, intruded in your life and made things a little bit more difficult for you. But I really do see them as a gift. And every person that I interacted with during, my role as a social worker, I made positive differences in their life, even if it was the smallest way. And I still have clients, years later, and children who have aged out of foster care or whatnot, who have found me on Facebook and have said, "Christy, thank you." So I guess I want to leave that as a message to everyone. Even though you're swimming upstream and you're fighting, and it seems like you can't win, if you're doing the right thing, you can't go wrong. And sometimes following the rules isn't the right thing. So I don't know if I've been up here for a long time or not. Yeah. Okay. Okay, she's saying I have about 5 minutes, and she suggested I share with you how I went from social work to this, and I'll give you a real quick rundown on that. Oh, okay. The workshop tonight is at 7 o'clock. It's in room 606, and it's donation only. You can come in. There'll be paper and a pen. You just write your name, your date of birth, and a question if you have a question. You don't have to write a question, but if you have something that's pressing on your mind that you would like maybe some insight to. And I'll draw it out of a basket, and I'll do that until everything's done. If I go through all the names, then I'll just start taking wherever my spirit guide tells me. You know, if I have a message for you, I will channel into that and give you that message. And how I went from social work to this, I still have a heart for social work. I really do. I decided, though, that my abilities, maybe if I use them and tap into them, and I'm becoming braver and braver each day, owning this vessel and these abilities that I've been given, I can do more help. I can help in different ways, but be a light. And maybe if I'm really lucky, maybe I'll inspire someone else who's going through some of the same things I'm going through. And all of us together, the vibrations we can send out, the positive vibrations, maybe that will overcome all those negative ripples. That's my hope. So, thank you all.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Wasn't that good for a first time? Look at that. Thank you, Christy Wills.